You're very welcome here today. Thanks very much. So yeah, let's get started. Perhaps we could start with the big picture. You have an incredible journey being an Argentinian in Brazil. So maybe we could start there, and then you tell us all about Nuvem Shopee and what you guys are doing.
Great, thank you, Carlos. Hello, everyone, again. So yeah, I think I can give you an overall picture of Nuvem Shop, how do we got where we are today, what are our plans, and share some experiences from starting a business in Argentina, coming to Brazil, and then expanding to different geographies and also different products. Nuvem Shop is very different from how it started. So a little bit of context from my side. I'm from Buenos Aires, Argentina. I lived there till my early 20s. Then I moved to Sao Paulo. I studied business administration and information systems. It was more a business career. And at the time, in 2008, I was in the middle of my university course. I met my other business partners, and at the time, e-commerce was less than 1% of total retail sales. Right, it was very small. Yet, marketplaces were booming. In Latin America, in particular, it was Mercado Libre mainly, and also social media was booming, especially Facebook, Twitter, and Orkut in Brazil.
Yeah.
And at the time, we realized that there was a lack of trust when buying online, right? So we started in 2008 a marketplace, but connecting the social media network with the idea of buying and selling through our social network, right? So we could buy and sell with higher trust. That was the main idea. That idea didn't work out for many reasons. One of them was timing. It wasn't the right market as well. We started in Argentina, as I said, but mainly because of an awful execution from our side, right? Being 100% honest with you. But from that experience, why I'm telling you this, from that experience, we realized that there were people using this marketplace, and they say, hey, Ale, I don't know what you're trying to do here, but I'm using some of your features to show my products to my potential customers. And there were a lot of people saying this, and we realized that these people were entrepreneurs who have tried to build an e-commerce, basically, with a web designer, a developer, but it was the process was very frustrating. It was expensive. It took a lot of time. They didn't have the autonomy to change the layout or update the new catalog or whatever. So most of them stopped trying, and they couldn't have their own e-commerce. And that's why 3 years later, 2011, that's when we thought, why don't we build an e-commerce platform, a SaaS platform? At the time, almost nobody was talking about SaaS as we talk today. Allow any person, any retail entrepreneur from Argentina at the beginning, but we thought about Latin America, to build an e-commerce like the big retailers in a very simple manner and, of course, affordable. So that was when in 2011 we pivoted the model to what Nuvem Shop, part of what Nuvem Shop is today. And in 2011 we closed the first investment round, $300,000, right?
Right.
And in 2012 we launched in Brazil very quick. Why was that? Because we realized that if we wanted first, because we saw that in Brazil there was the same issue. There were a lot of e-commerce companies trying to offer this solution, but it wasn't easy, it wasn't affordable. It was more like a consultant company building from scratch. So we realized that the same pain we saw in Argentina, it was happening in Brazil as well. So that was one of the reasons. The other one is that if we really wanted to be a tech company in Latin America, our business couldn't depend just on Argentina, which is very unstable in terms of economic, political issues. So we knew we needed money in the future, venture capital, to invest in technology. That's why Brazil was a no-brainer for us. So that was in the early days. Long story short, almost during 9 years till the beginning of 2020, we relentlessly focused on building a very easy to use product to create an online store. That was our main focus, our carro-chefe, as we said in Brazil, right? Our main product was the e-commerce solution, and focus just in Brazil and Argentina. And the order is important. We were born in Argentina as a company, but Brazil has been since 2014 our main focus. It wasn't our main business for a long time, but our main focus was in Brazil. So some examples of that. Every person of our team was learning Portuguese, even the support team who was just supporting Argentinian customers, because we wanted to become a Brazil first company. I moved to Brazil in 10 years ago. Was other reason. Today, if you look at the C-level team, we are 9 people, 3 of us founders, but 9 people, 3 Brazilians and 2 Argentinians living in Brazil. So most part of the C-level team lives in Brazil now. So that was, we are 1,000 people. More than 700 people are in Brazil. So that was part of the transformation from an Argentinian company to a Brazilian company. It took time, and today our main business is in Brazil. Our main products are in Brazil. So just a step backwards. I said almost a decade focused on e-commerce solution, Brazil and Argentina. Just that. We tried to launch other products. We tried to expand to other geographies, but it didn't work out. And every time we do that, it was at the expense of not going as fast or as well as we could in Argentina and in Brazil. So it was always a trade-off of focus of in terms of time, team, and investment, right? So when the pandemic came, now it's easy to see, but at the time it wasn't for us. It was crystal clear, it got crystal clear that we've been working almost a decade to build a really easy to use product. We went from 30,000 paying customers we have at the time to 70,000 paying customers in just 9 months in 2020. And of course, that came with a huge complexity in terms of operations. We went from 180 people to 600 people, just 9 months. And after that, e-commerce, before the pandemic, it was 5%. When we started, it was 1%. After the pandemic, it got to 10, 12%. And after that, in 2021, we closed our 2 last investment rounds for a total amount of $600 million, which was one of the largest investment rounds in Latin America. And to be honest, it wasn't money investment we really needed for the short term, because there was no need in terms of use of proceeds. But it was clear that it was a good move and a smart move in order to be 100% focused in the following years to build this ecosystem with our partners and to be 100% focused on our merchants, our customers, right? So what I'm saying, the pandemic is when it started, like the second phase of Noodle Shop, the last 3 years, because of the growth, because of the investment, and that allow us to build what Noodle Shop is today. Again, we still are an e-commerce platform. That's our main focus, still is. But today we are allowing any entrepreneur from the retail world to set up, manage, and expand and grow a digital business. So today we have also our point of sale. which is for the offline retailers, the offline entrepreneurs. Mainly, we are offering that product for our customers for now. So at least a third of our customers have an offline business, right? So we can offer that product as well. Today, we have 120,000 paying customers. I didn't say that. Today, we are the largest commerce platform in terms of merchants, volume of merchants. And we also launched our payment solution. Almost half of the GMV of our customers in Brazil are processed through our payment solution. Again, the choice is from the merchant. That's why we say it's an open platform, an open ecosystem. We have every payment solution you can imagine, and the choice is from our merchant. But we have our own payment solution. We believe in a free market, and we believe that we can build better products if we compete with other solutions, right? The same thing is for logistics. We have our logistics solution. In that case, and that was one of the lessons learned, we weren't experts in logistics. We were mostly from the software side. So in that case, one of the first acquisitions we made was a logistics company, Mandae. Probably many of you know it. So look at it. For us, it was like, in order to accelerate our vision, we could have developed that internally, but of course, it will take much more time if we do that. More expensive, I don't know, probably. That's why we did the acquisition of Mandae, which is now Nuvem Envío, our logistics solution. And again, it's an open platform. Our customers choose who they want to work with in terms of logistics. And we also launched other products, marketing automation. With payments, we now are offering a lending, credits for merchants, for working capital mainly, and some other products which I won't mention all of them here, but our strategy was always like how we can offer this concept of one-stop shop solution for the merchants, so they can solve everything in Nuvem Shop, again, with native products or with third-party products. In the case of native products, many of them we developed them inside. In some cases, we did some acquisitions because we believe we could accelerate the ecosystem development. So I think I would stop there. I don't know, Carlos, if you believe it's useful, relevant to share any other information. I wanted to give you a general context of the company and where we are today.
No, absolutely. I think it has changed quite a lot from 2022, if I'm not mistaken. When did the acquisition of Mandae happen? 2022?
It was by the end of, no, it was 2021. 2021, yeah. So yeah, the company changed a lot in the last mainly 3 years, when we were able to develop new teams, new products. We made some acquisitions, mainly in Brazil. All of these products I've shared, all of them are or started in Brazil. And then we're doing the rollout in the rest of Latin America, especially Mexico, Argentina. And recently we've launched in Colombia and Chile as well. We used to work in those countries earlier, but it was mostly organic. Now we have people in those countries. So our strategy is like we have product and technology teams. Some of those teams are 100% focused on a specific region. And then we have the go-to-market teams on each of those countries. Because even though international companies look at Latin America as a unit, in reality, when you double click, you realize it's very, very different, right? Brazil from Argentina, from Mexico, from Colombia, Chile. So at least in our experience in technology and SMBs in particular, if you want to succeed in those countries, you need to double click and have a local strategy on each of them. And the last thing I want to share now is that we started focusing on entrepreneurs. That's still part of our focus. That's why we also have a freemium plan for the e-commerce solution. But we are also working now. We have a more robust platform. We are also focusing on mid-market merchants, not enterprise. Mid-market, it's like merchants who are selling millions of reais per month just on the e-commerce channel.
Yeah, brilliant. The first thing I like to ask you, Ale, and I never asked you that. When we spoke mostly about that very moment. But I'm interested in that leap from going. You were in Argentina, and then you guys understood that Brazil was a very strategic market for you, because I was having this discussion with a friend at VTEX Day, and he said, the same way we look at the US, other countries in Latin America look at Brazil, right? Like as the region, for example, just for context, especially for who isn't from our region. I'm interested in the role of the investors, because you have Kazakh, for example, and I think one of the founders of Kazakh, they created Mercado Libre, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah.
The role of having this kind of investors for you guys, lending Brazil, because it's smart money in that sense, like helping or really enabling you with or supporting you in any sense when going to Brazil. Did that help in any sense in terms of knowledge? Because Mercado Libre is like such a beast nowadays in Brazil. Right, they became a massive logistics company. In my understanding, I just saw how much they announced really that they're investing in logistics 3 weeks ago when I was in Brazil. So it's really impressive what's going on there. So these investors, for you guys, what was the role that you would share here with us in terms of how important that kind of knowledge, not only money, but the knowledge that you guys acquired from them?
It was extremely important. In the case of why Brazil, that came mostly from us, as I said, because we on the ground, we went. A side note, when I was at university, one of my professors told us, guys, besides English, you need to learn Portuguese, because as Argentinians, we will do a lot of things with Brazilians. And that was 2007. Before starting or thinking about starting something from scratch. And I went and studied Portuguese every Saturday with my girlfriend, then my wife. We went to learn Portuguese 4 hours every Saturday during almost a year. And so we have that mindset of Brazil, it was like almost crystal clear, maybe with not all the information, but it was crystal clear for us that we should go to Brazil. So when we met our first investors, they were already aligned with that. They agree with that. In the case, as you mentioned, Kazakh was one of them, Kazakh Ventures, but we have a previous VC. We have like the angels investors in 2011, most of them from the tech world. One of the founders of OLX, for instance, OLX. Then we have a VC from Brazil, which then closed, but they chose us because he always tell this story. I chose you because you were in an event for entrepreneurs, a Saturday in Brazil, in Sao Paulo, talking in Portuguese. So that showed me that you were really committed to build something interesting here in Brazil, right? So it was more of an attitude, a feeling, besides the business, right? And then Kazakh came. That was our Series A by the end of 2014. So in a nutshell, we were aligned in terms of what we were trying to build, in terms of priorities of geographies. But when Kazakh Ventures started working with us, they help us to be more disciplined in terms of, for instance, budget, in terms of goals. It's not that we didn't have goals. Of course, we have goals, but we try to be much more disciplined in how we follow the business, follow the KPIs, define a budget, and understand how we were working. It wasn't a demand from their side, but it was like an organic, I would say, an organic evolution of the business of the company. So that was an example. We were lucky, and at the same time, we were able to choose the right VCs working with us, the right partners, not only with Cassette, but also the ones that follow in the next years. We have really smart people around us who understand the business in the long term and really help us. And I mean, I don't know if that was the same thing with all the portfolio companies, but at least for us, we always were the ones who really made the call, made the decisions. We listened to them because they have experience, as you mentioned. One of them was the CFO in the early days of Mercado Libre, till the IPO and later. We have Kevin Efrasi, who was the leading investor with Insight in the time with Axel, I'm sorry, on the early days of Facebook. So it's people that you can't ignore, you know, and you will learn from them. So, and I know probably what you're hearing is like sweet words for our investors, but it really is. It was like that. Of course, it changed the company a lot, especially in the last few years with more investors, more money invested in the company. Of course, the stakes are higher, the expectations are higher, and you have to deal with that. You have to manage this board. But all in all, it's for us, it's crystal clear that it was the path if we want to build what we want to build. We couldn't do it any other way, I believe.
That's brilliant. I'll ask you just one more question, and then I like to have the community going on. But what's the size of the opportunity that you guys are foreseeing in Latin America, Brazil and Latin America? I mean, yeah, and that is over to you.
I will share three figures that I kept in my mind, and I believe that represents very well the size of the opportunity. The first one is, I already mentioned it, just 10% of total retail sales is e-commerce today. In the US, it's 20 something. In China, is near 50%. So we're still on the early days. Second, just 6% of formal SMBs, small and medium businesses in Brazil, have an online store, an e-commerce to sell directly to the consumer. Argentina is 13%, Mexico is 2%. So the region in general is still very, very small, that number. So I always make this exercise and you can do it as well. When you go walking on the street and you see the brick and mortar stores selling physical goods, do this question. This business makes sense that they should be selling online directly to the consumer with an e-commerce. 99% of the times, the answer will be yes. So that's what we are trying to do here. Again, even though we are on the offline world now as well, that's what we are trying to do. And the third one is that we are our business is not e-commerce, it's retail in Latin America. So it's $1 trillion business opportunity. It's huge. And this wasn't obvious on the early days, to be honest. Actually, one of the pushbacks we used to have on the first investment rounds from investors was like, I don't know that everyone will have an e-commerce. How big is your total addressable market? I don't believe it's that high, you know? And of course, before the pandemic, but after the pandemic, that wasn't a question anymore. It was extremely clear the size of the opportunity.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Ale. Now I'll open the to the community. So just to to have some order here. I'll ask you guys and ladies. I can only see one so far. To raise your hand, and then it would be very nice if you could just show a face and interact here. But if you're a bit shy, of course you're very welcome to type into the questions, and yeah, I'll read it out loud. Aitun, welcome. Go ahead. You're on mute. Just yeah.
Yeah, sorry. I'm interested in it because I'm interested in e-com overall, and I have e-com analytics in my team as well. So I created it because I think it requires a special attention. So my question is, because I mean, I look after a lot of countries. We are not that good in Latin America, a bit in Argentina as far as I know. But in Turkey, we are big, and in my company, we are number 3 on the world after US and China. As you said, we are number 3. Sorry, there is UK and China, not US for us. Argentina, even Brazil 2 years ago, Turkey, high inflationary countries, all of us. We are like 140% at food right now. And after pandemic, as you said, the behaviors has changed a lot. We were seeing e-commerce increasing and increasing with a certain set of portfolio. But this year, for instance, after a few years post-pandemic, because the prices are huge, I think you did the right thing to get into offline, because we see the huge gain of e-com slowed down a bit, and people are, I mean, especially supermarkets, not the regional key accounts and discounters, but supermarkets started taking back the share of e-commerce, at least my part of the world, which we have similar economies. How do you see it in Brazil and Argentina? I mean, the offline retailers, I mean, the big competitors, how do they behave to slow down? I mean, what type of activities they do? We see huge in and out product activities, extremely heavily discounts, like 50%. My first question. Second question, do you have discounters in these markets? We have a lot. And now discounters boomed with their e-commerce online shops. And they are, again, started stealing a lot from FMCG and FMCH products. So how do you foresee all this in Argentina and Brazil? Thank you.
Thank you. Just to see if I understood well the second question. If we have discounters?
Yeah, in these markets, I don't remember very well. Yeah.
What discounters are like? What exactly?
Like the shops that are okay. Maybe you don't have this definition of
like the Groupons.
Yeah, or companies that sell like very cheap price, kind of like, would it be like an outlet kind of, or
okay,
I mean, they are like small medium level of grocery shops, not grocery, like small supermarkets with 2 maximum cash, and they don't have any people who do merchandising. They put the product with boxes. In Europe, there is a huge chain of Aldi and Ohan, and in Middle East and here and like North Africa, we have Beam, A101, Shock. So this discounter is a new terminology and new type of shops that the well-known supermarkets started opening up as well to replace groceries and mom and shops type of. But they sell 25 to 30% less of the same product. So because they save from merchandising and they sell cheap. We see these type of shops, online sites booming a lot now. So I don't know the scope of the retail environment in Brazil that much. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Gia was a discounter. I mean, in Brazil, right? I mean, they didn't do really well. But Equiso, which is Mexican, now is growing quite a bit. I wouldn't. Yeah.
Got it. Thank you for the explanation. Okay, so answering the first question, of course, after the pandemic, e-commerce accelerated. That was expected when the offline world came to normality. But e-commerce sales are growing faster than retail, the offline retail in general. I can tell you on a specific vertical, maybe any of you have that information, maybe a specific vertical, it's happening the contrary. But in general, e-commerce, when you look, maybe not a year, because there are some, as you mentioned, macroeconomic, political situations that changes a bit the short term, but the trend I believe it's going to be e-commerce growing. It's not that the offline will die, of course not, but I think the mix will be more like what we've seen, what we see today in the UK, for instance, 30% or something, China 50%. I believe that's the trend, right? That part of the and something, a trend we've seen as well. We work with small and medium businesses and mid-market, and it's interesting to see like two trends. The first one is, or actually, yeah, one of them is that the born digital businesses. There are businesses that started from scratch in digital world. It's very common, like start selling on social media, then start their own e-commerce because they want something more robust, the business scaling, and eventually they launch an offline store. I've seen that a lot. A lot of our customers started that way. And then you have like the brick and mortar, more traditional SMB from the offline world, offline retail world, who is doing the contrary. They started offline, with many branches maybe, and then they start online, selling directly to the consumer. And some of them have the strategy of closing some of their offline stores. So I've seen both, you know. I don't know if that answered your first question. Yep.
It does.
I don't know, and I don't know if any of you can comment on that. Maybe have another perspective. Regarding the second question, I don't think I can share any insightful information about that. There, of course, Argentina nowadays it's in a very critical situation. Hopefully, it will improve thanks to the new government, but too soon to tell. To be honest, there's a lot of optimism, but too soon to tell. The economy is still struggling a lot. I've seen our merchants; they are adjusting prices below inflation rate. That means margins are getting thinner, and they are doing that in order to keep selling, but they are not selling as much as they expect. And even though our business is growing as a whole in Argentina, the economy is still struggling, you know. So in those cases, discounters, there are a lot of them. And in Brazil, I believe there are a lot of them as well, right? Because the economy is in better shape, but the market is huge, so it makes sense to see those kind of discounters. So maybe someone else has a better answer or can complement on
That's
that.
already a good answer, Alejandro. I mean, I understand you by heart because we are suffering in the same way with inflation. So I get it.
Mhm.
Thank you.
And we are doing better than Turkey and Argentina. We are #1 in inflation rate. We are very proud of that.
I think Joshua raised his hand. Joshua, go ahead. Just
Yes,
introduce yourself. And yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm new here. I don't know exactly who knows each other, but Alejandro, I resonate a lot with what you had to say, just because I work for a SaaS company that converts PDFs to catalogs, and we work in the US where I want to say #1 to PDF flipbook converter. It might be direction, but we're 1 out of 2 people right now. But I'm an Ecuadorian USA citizen that currently lives in Colombia, so I'm kind of out of my element a little bit right now too. I'm actually calling out of the library right now. I'm like in between moving Airbnbs, and it's like I'm here right now for a conference for Filbo to kind of like basically do in-person work, because I have a whole new direction. A little bit about my company. I mentioned we work out of the US, but right now we're trying to do new integrations because we had this idea with VR and things like that to make these composable commerce integrations. So perfect example is Hyatt. They have these brochures that you can have 3D tours and access them now through VR. So then when you have a VR catalog, you click on it, you access straight through, and it's all within VR so that you can even buy and rent as you're shopping through. And that's kind of the idea, is to not leave home anymore. But a lot of what these US major brands basically said after going to conferences and research and things like that was, these are great ideas, we want to implement it, and we want to start making the technology for it, which is we're getting internships and things like that to make like bootleg programs and things to see what works best. But essentially they wanted to know, is this for sure going to make money? So what my company kind of did was based on my predicament being one of the only people outside, actually, I am the only one outside of the US. Everybody else is in the USA. So basically, they gave me the initiative to try and push out this technology and see where we can take this. Composable commerce, it's called. Very specific API integrations and things. But what I wanted to do specifically for Latin America was, my father owns like a store where it's like he sells Levi jeans, he imports them, and he lives in Cuenca, Ecuador. So it's like basically a lot had to do with brick and mortar. But what we did was we moved it completely online to e-commerce, and I showed him a little bit about what my company did, and then got him integrated with that. But what we did recently was we built a VR store and had it connected to all of his product lines. And it's kind of like a game where you can break bottles and things like that, but still buy it at the end. It's basically very immersive, and we're just trying to like make it kind of like that.
I think we lost.
We lost.
Yeah, but it's like very small. Like I'm very new. I'm 23 years old, and I've been doing this now for 2 years. But they recently, just this year, finally kind of gave me the reins in terms of now, okay, you're in South America. There's a market out there. Kind of what you can do with that, because we're also, what I told them too is with AI and things like that in the next year, these language barriers and things that we were struggling with before, we're not nearly going to have as much trouble with. And so we need to compensate for expansion of growth. Other countries are going to be looking into e-commerce, because the USA right now, we're partnered with like Samsung, Hubble, major brands, but we're not outside of the USA whatsoever, or a little bit in the UK, but not really. So
Joshua,
like,
I don't mean to be rude, but do you have a question? Just real quick.
Yes.
So other people
My
can
question
ask
is, yes, my question is, you moving, and you said like going outside of the US, what kind of maybe advice could you have? Because right now what I'm doing is going to conferences and doing collaborations like this online. But how do you think might this be received in these types of markets? Because like I said, right now I'm looking into this market, Colombia and Ecuador in particular, seeing what the people think about here and doing my research. But Brazil, I've actually never been to Brazil, so I wouldn't know how that necessarily would fare over there. From here, the perspective is it's safer, or this could be a new way, as long as the technology becomes cheaper, that people can shop relatively dark hours when it's dangerous to go out, because in villages and pueblos and things like that, it might not be necessarily as safe. So we're trying to take e-commerce kind of into a new direction, not necessarily taking away from what's built on from the past, but just the new technologies with mixed reality, AI. There's a lot of new integration things that these companies want to take advantage of, but nobody knows necessarily how, and nobody wants to take the chance yet. So it's going to be who takes that chance. But that's the USA from my perspective. I kind of wanted to get your perspective based off everything I just kind of told you now.
Okay, if I got your question right, first I would think about why focus outside US for something that is still quite new. I do believe in, I will call it different, simplify VR e-commerce. I do believe in that. I believe there's still a huge gap in terms of product penetration. I mean, you mentioned that prices need to be much cheaper. And it doesn't seem that it will change very soon. So I would just focus on the market which has the budget to adopt that technology in a massive way. Otherwise, it's just in my view, it's just like dreaming in the future. You are building that. You're trying to build that, and that's great. But I don't know, if I look at Latin America, I would say which is the best country to start developing this. Probably I would look at where's the more mature market in terms of e-commerce first, and then which is the market that has more potential to acquire this new technology called VR. And
yeah,
without looking at the numbers, I will shoot it's Brazil. Mexico is not, because e-commerce is still some steps behind. I don't know, Colombia, maybe it is, but it's a small, much smaller market. But again, my question will be another one, is why looking outside US at this moment?
I think we're doing it mainly because it's more of like nobody else in my company necessarily like does this. I'm the only one below the age of 30 in my company. So it's like really in terms of VR, AI and things, they don't necessarily understand it at all. So there's not anybody who can like go to those conferences, who can do the research and who really like has the know-how to put it all together. So right now, because I'm out here and living out here, that's why pretty much.
Got it. My second advice will be I will leave. I will stop going to a lot of conferences and focus more on potential customers and talk to them and understand if it makes sense or not.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, that's great advice, really. Next question, please raise your hands if you have any. That would be great. Great opportunity to interact here with Alejandro. So, Rafa, maybe Rafa, he closes his camera. Fernanda, I don't know if you can, if you're available today, or Gustavo. Gustavo has been in e-commerce for a long time. Rafa as well. Chris, I can see you. I tend to push people sometimes just to get them out of the comfort zone.
I have a question. So, what do you believe are the next steps for e-commerce, and especially in focusing on the businesses that Northern Shop and Europe focusing are SMBs, and what do you believe are the next steps of evolution of this type of commerce? So because the first step would be having an e-commerce and being online, and what do you believe is the next step that Brazil and especially Latin America market for e-commerce as a whole needs to have for the next step for the e-commerces itself, have this evolution, so for the market to grow effectively?
Got it. I don't know if it was just me.
Yeah, it was breaking a bit. It was breaking a bit.
But I think I got the question is like, what are the big next steps in terms of for e-commerce evolution in general, and in particular on Nugam Shop to be able to keep growing our business. Is that correct?
Yes, and for the e-commerce market as a whole. So the first step is was for the retailers to have their online stores, and for the next step. So what's the next evolution do you believe that the market in Latin America especially needs to for the e-commerce environment to evolve to get the next level?
Got it. I think that there are a couple of trends and needs to be developed in the region. The first one is like we'll see more brands or merchants trying to sell directly to the consumer on the online world. I mean, e-commerce started with marketplaces, with someone in the middle, and it makes a lot of sense. It was easier. It wasn't your main channel, so it was the no-brainer way to start. But as soon as online sales get bigger on your share, you need to have the direct relationship with your customer. Of course, it has its challenges. It's a bit more complex, but you need to start thinking and building that. So we will see that trend. As I said, we're still 6% of formal SMBs have an online store, so it's still quite small. The second one, in order to that number start growing, it's like logistics. This is still one of the main bottlenecks in Brazil, globally, I would say. But in Brazil, it's very clear. So we need to keep improving logistics in terms of costs, in terms of delivery time, in terms of efficiency, in energy efficiency, and so on. So we need to keep investing on logistics as a whole, not only Nugam Shop, but the whole ecosystem as well, and keep innovating on that. The third one is like, we believe that there's always going to be like a storefront where people will go and see your products and buy from you. But of course, where the audiences are, it will change over time. When we started, the audience was at Google and Facebook mainly. Then we saw Instagram, then we saw WhatsApp, then we saw TikTok, and I don't know what we are going to see in the next coming years. VR maybe it becomes a much more relevant channel maybe in a decade. I don't know, maybe sooner. So our vision is how we keep connecting seamlessly all these channels where audiences are, consumers are, so the merchants can keep offering a great purchase experience, regardless I would say social network, but it's not a social network necessarily. And the last one, we've been hearing and talking about omni-channel for a long time, but there's still a long way to go in terms of really connecting all the channels, online and offline, and offering a great consumer experience. So I believe we still have a long way to go there as well. Those are maybe, I believe, some of the bets and where we have to keep investing as an ecosystem and as a company at least in the next 5 years. And of course, I didn't mention this, but in terms of AI, again, why I didn't mention AI, it's because AI, it's not a goal per se, it's a means to an end, right? And AI, I think it will revolutionize every aspect of the retail world, e-commerce, and everything in ways that it's still hard to imagine.
Very nice. Thanks for sharing. Thanks, Gustavo, for your question as well. So Fernanda, she has a question here. Fernanda, she lives in Spain, is a dear member of our community. She's a former Nike. Now she advises companies in the fashion space. And she would love to hear from you, Ale, your perceptions about Venezuela and this new retail moment when big companies are going back to the country. I'm not sure, was it Zara that announced that they were launching in Venezuela? Maybe a thumbs up. I think I heard something of, yeah, Zara, exactly. Any idea there, Ale, that you guys are seeing? Or
hopefully this new retail moment you're mentioning, Fernanda, it's for real, and hopefully it builds trust for companies like Nubem Shop and others to try to help entrepreneurs from Venezuela. Today, to be honest, it's not a focus for us. We follow a bit of what we've seen from Mercado Libre, right? I mean, Mercado Libre is like, as a public company, it's a good way to understand the e-commerce ecosystem in the region, specifically e-commerce, not necessarily retail as a whole. Hopefully change. It's more a wish than an opinion per se. Of course, if we look at the environment is changing, we would love to help merchants from Venezuela as well, but we are not focusing on Venezuela right now. And I don't have details to have a more informed opinion about Venezuela, to be honest.
Yeah, she's just saying that Ferrari and other luxury brands are there as well. Thanks, Fit. Daniel Topper, he was just here and he sent me a few questions on WhatsApp. Very nice guy. He had to leave. His question was more in regards to the competitive landscape, which I think it's a fair enough question to ask. I mean, in order to compete, especially in Brazil with VTEX and Shopify joining the country, and what would you say in terms of differentiation in order to exist versus having to compete with well-capitalized companies in that sense? I think that's what he's saying. Yeah.
It's an interesting question. I don't know if I have a perfect answer, but I believe one of them, for sure, that's why I tell the story that way. It's been almost the first decade, we've been almost focused on just one product, which was the e-commerce platform. And from scratch, we thought on how we could scale this product. I mean, we didn't have a sales team during the first 8 years of the company. 8 years, we didn't have a sales team. There was no sales team. It was just a product, self-service, good enough so everyone could build their e-commerce on their own. And we have a support team who exactly could support you in case of doubts, problems, or so. And that was key. And we did that better than anyone in the region. Shopify did that great in the US, but they didn't do that great in Latin America, especially in Brazil and Argentina, where we were mainly focused on the first years. There were companies that started on the mid-market enterprise level and tried to go down, buying companies, and it didn't work well because the DNA is very different. So in our case, we started working on the base, the small businesses, and as our product and platform and ecosystem got better, we were able to support and service larger merchants. And that was the first reason. The second one is related to that ecosystem. We've been always an open ecosystem, working with partners. There are hundreds of partners, tech companies, payments, logistics, marketing, ERPs, and so on, that not only integrated or develop on top of Nugam Shop, but they improve those integrations. It's not binary. It's not that you are or you are not integrated. It's the quality of those integrations, because that's what really counts on the daily basis for the merchants. So we've been focused on that in Brazil and Argentina, now in Mexico, Colombia, Chile. So that was another big differentiator comparing to the other companies you mentioned. And third, even though we are a tech company, we always try to differentiate ourselves in terms of service. We are talking about hundreds of thousands of merchants. Most of them are not experts on e-commerce, are not tech-savvy people, most of them. So we really need to support them with education, a lot of content we developed on the early days. Then we bought e-commerce in a Práctica, but we've done that since the early days. And also the support team. One of the inspirations was the book Delivering Happiness from the founder and CEO of Zappos, then bought to Amazon. And they did that for the B2C, for a B2C business. And an inspiration for us was, why don't we do that same thing on a B2B business in Latin America? So we can show that we can deliver great support experience in Latin America in a B2B business. So that's something that also we know that also help us. And then it's about tech, how we can keep innovating and adding products that helps our merchants and understand their needs, and focus. Again, we don't do this in the US because there's someone better doing that in the US and there's a lot of competition, but nobody was focused as we were in Latin America.
Awesome. Just before you, Chris, there was a question here in the chat. Let me just see if it's not it's from Rafa. Rafa works, he's an Amazon specialist. They help companies expand internationally via Amazon, and they do a bunch more. Pardon, Rafa, but that's the intro you get here. So he's asking, if I may ask, what was the key thing that you guys did as a founder to make Nuvem Shop gain traction in the Latin markets and accelerate customer growth? And what is it, in your opinion, that what made Nuvem so successful? You partially answered that, but maybe just
Rafa, I would expect that my previous answer already answered that question, but if I can add something that from the strategy business perspective, but in the end, it was about building the right team to be able to execute everything I mentioned, because the word sounds great, but then you have to execute that perfectly. And we didn't do a perfect execution, to be honest. When I look backwards in retrospective, there are a lot of things that we could have done better. Again, what it matters in these cases is how you compare yourself with your with you on the previous years, and also compared to the others, because it's a free market. You have competition. Probably we've done that better than others, but the key question is how you keep yourself humble enough to keep understanding what you need to improve in the coming years. In our case, to be honest, we are very well capitalized. We have a very good position in terms of strategy. We have a great team, but we have nothing for granted in the coming years, because it depends on how well we execute. And of course, there are a lot of things that we don't control. We don't control the politics, economics, the competition, but I believe most of our responsibility is enough to be successful in the coming years. That's how I like to think, at least.
Brilliant. Thanks, Rafa. Thanks, Ale. Chris has a very cool story, but Chris, you raise your hand now, introduce yourself.
I know part of his story.
Yeah,
I agree with you.
Hey guys, so for those who don't know me, I'm Chris. I'm currently the COO at Yampi, Brazilian e-com and checkout platform. Can you guys hear me well, or I'm breaking up? Can you hear me now? Well, okay. So yeah, I know Ale from a long time ago. I think since my GoDaddy days, I've been to GoDaddy, to Shopify, Google, Wix, and now I'm here. I'm always very interested in how, during all these roles, I've always tried to find ways to help the Latin American economy, bringing better technology, affordable prices, and so on. And today I'm really curious on how do you see the future of commerce in Latin America? Do you think like conversational commerce, transactions on WhatsApp, more kind of like commerce related, will become a thing in Latin America? Or do you think we will go more on the road like in the US, be very marketplace centric, and then if you grow, you have your own online store and go in D2C? What is your take on that?
Well, that's a good question. Actually, when we talk about conversational commerce, in my view, it's like connected with what I mentioned about how we offer this storefront agnostic to the channels. It could be a social network, or it will be more a conversational commerce, as you mentioned. And I believe that will be, I believe it will gain traction more than we've seen today. But I see that as part of this vision of how we are building commerce at Nuvem Shop, right? I mean, today it's WhatsApp. Maybe it's another platform in the future. But how do we provide a better commerce experience in WhatsApp for the consumer and for the merchant connecting with Nuvem Shop, So yeah, probably conversational commerce is one of the biggest trends when you look at where the audiences are in the online world. So I think it's great to see. I've seen many companies working on that space, and I think that's great. And again, it's how we can work together to offer a better experience for the consumer as a merchant, as I said.
Thank you.
Very cool. Thanks. Anyone else? We have also people who never join here, first times, maybe they're a bit shy. No more questions? All right. So yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, sorry. Feel free, of course, to reach me later on WhatsApp or LinkedIn or any network you prefer, or share feedback or any other question. Would love to keep chatting with you.
I
Yeah,
have
be.
can I ask one last question before we close? Other than checking the sales or like the growth numbers, do you have any other a way of measuring your KPIs? For example, internally, we have our sales records as a KPI, but then we also work with a lot of like other companies. Now I'm shifting one of them. I'm shifting from Profitero to a company called Shelion, a Spanish company. And there is data impact of Nielsen that measures the performance KPIs on how you do in e-commerce. Do you have like alternative site that you measure your executional, internal executional stuff? Do you have such measurement at the other side of the business? We have like a preset. In my previous company in Haleon GSK, we had 18. Here we have 23 KPIs that we check our performance on awareness, on visibility, on like execution, on everything. Do you have such a KPI setting in the other side?
You mentioned KPIs to measure our performance as a company, not of the e-commerce ecosystem.
Business. Yeah, no, the way of doing business. Yes, you versus others. For example, I'm performing the way I execute things in your platform versus my competition. Do you have a way to measure your performance? How you do against competition?
Yeah, got you. Yeah, what we do is we have like some of our competitors are public companies, so we look at those numbers and we compare to them in terms of revenue, GMV, number of customers. Like those are like the three main metrics. Of course, then you can look at gross margins, for instance, profits, right? So we compare to the public companies in that sense, and then we look at different tools, public tools, where you can see the market share of at least of a number of customers. That's a bit biased sometimes, so it's not like the Bible, but it's a proxy to understand the evolution, the trend in terms of market share. And other one we use are branded searches with Google, the Google tools. That's great. That gives you a better idea, at least on the top of the funnel. For instance, let me give you an example. When you look at e-commerce platform, B2C e-commerce platform, I mean, I'm excluding marketplaces. We look at the market share of branded searches on each country. And for instance, today we are the top one in Argentina and Brazil. 40% of the branded searches of e-commerce platform are Nubem Shop or Tienda Nube. That wasn't like that some years ago, especially in Brazil. So that helped us understand our job in terms of brand development mainly. So that helped us, and I would say those are the main ones when comparing to the competition. And the last one, what we look always is like the results of the special dates like Black Friday, Cyber Monday, Hot Sale. We look at how much was sold during that period, and we compare to our merchants' GMV, and we can see how our GMV share is growing. So we not only look at customer base or customer share, but also GMV share.
Thank you.
Welcome.
All right. Just a question about NPS, and I mean, this is about the customers that you had, but I presume you guys measured that as well, right? And how important that measurement is that for you?
We do measure NPS, but it's not for us a measurement for comparison, because that would be a bit tricky. It could be very misleading. So the only thing that matters us regarding NPS is the trend and comparing our countries, our performance in each country, and especially the feedback, the qualitative feedback. You know, right, why someone says 10 when someone says 1. You know, that what really matters to us, but not for comparing with other companies.
Brilliant. Well, Ale, it's been great to have you on this session today. Thank you very much for your time. Everyone who was here, thank you very much for showing up. You're very welcome to be connecting on LinkedIn. Yeah, we have our WhatsApp group, which I'm constantly trying not to be very annoying, but also, you know, doing my community management. It's a bit tricky. And yeah, this was great, very insightful, Ale. So I encourage everyone here in this group to network with each other, to build relationships and also to connect with Ale. And thanks so much for this session today. It was amazing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
all.
Thank you, Ale. See you. Thank you, Carlos. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thanks, Ali. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.